Hi, Wib Newton here. You or someone you know may have said at one time, my love language is, and then they fill in the blank. What I have found in my experience is that the 5 love languages presented by Gary Chapman in his book, The 5 Love Languages, has often been abused. And so this podcast is going to be looking at ways people abuse the 5 love languages. Over the last couple of decades, one of the more popular books that is out there regarding relationships is what's called the 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. It's a very simple premise and an accurate one in the fact that there are certain things that people do that either puts in deposits in our emotional bank account or withdraws from our bank account. Depending upon the violation, will determine to the extent of that withdrawal. If I maybe say something that is cross at my spouse, that might be a small withdrawal. If I have an affair, of course, that's going to be a larger withdrawal from that relationship. The real meat of the book is that of how we put deposits in each other's bank account. What I want to say here is that this is where it often is, I think, misinterpreted by the author's intention. And let me clarify that. There are 5 ways that the book suggests that there are deposits. There is acts of service, working around the house, taking care of the laundry, doing the oil changes on the car, mowing the lawn, taking care of the kids. I mean, things are very numerous, and every household has lots of things that you can do acts of service for. It is, the second one is physical touch, affection. Doesn't have to be sex. A lot of times it's non-demand physical touch. Holding a hand, a kiss on the neck, something, a hug, something simple like that. The third one is words of affirmation, encouragement, the attaboys that sometimes we all need, the affirmations of good job done. The fourth love language is that of gifts. It can be a simple gift or it could be a large gift. It could be a trip to Europe, or it could be a Snicker bar that you pick up at the drugstore. And the last one is just quality time that you spend with the other person, whether it be on walks or sitting together, talking, sharing in an activity of some sort. That's the quality time. Now, the book encourages people to consider what their love language is. Now, I know for a fact that, especially talking to my wife, is that sometimes those change over time. And so you can't say, okay, you say your acts of service is your love language, and then that never changes, because it does, it changes. But as the book encourages, you stop and consider, okay, maybe my love language is physical touch. Now, here is where the abuse of the book comes in, or let's say a misinterpretation of what the book is really trying to encourage. And that is, if you don't touch me, or you don't speak to me and affirm me as much, or you don't spend as much time with me, any of the other 5 love languages, if you don't do it enough, or if you don't do it the way I think it ought to be done, then that means you don't love me because I'm not feeling it. Maybe you can already see how that's abused. Where if I am not feeling loved, therefore you must not be loving me. My feelings dictate what is true. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for instance, that my wife loves physical touch. And let's say I am in a very busy day and I come home and I am not really in any kind of mood, except I just want to get cleaned up. I want to sit down. I want to veg a little bit. And she's over there and she hasn't had any kind of physical touch that day. If she interprets that as I don't love her, that is misinformation. That is incorrect. And she could say, but I don't feel loved because you aren't giving that to me. What she's allowing herself to do is let her feelings dictate what's really true. There was many times when sometimes she would say something like that. Wib, whenever you do this, I don't feel loved. I feel rejected. And we had many conversations to help her understand that even though she was feeling that, that didn't mean that was what was going on here. What was really true had to be reinterpreted, had to be reinvestigated inside of her, that what she was feeling wasn't accurate. Now, in any relationship, you have to have a balanced give and take. There has to be this part where, you know, I'm expecting certain things out of this relationship. I'm expecting affection. I'm expecting companionship. I'm expecting us to spend time together. I'm expecting us to do service projects together. I'm wanting us to share finances together. That's what causes this balanced give and take. Now, that means if I am expecting affection, then I am also obligated to give affection. If I am expecting time together, then I'm also obligated to give time together. Now, does that mean that I'm going to give it the same amount of time as maybe as my spouse does? Does that mean that I'm going to show affection as much as my spouse does? No, not necessarily, because it's the fairness or the balance of give and take is hardly ever straight across the board, static, equal, 100%, 100%. It's like a seesaw. It's going to go back and forth. And because of that, some people begin to misinterpret that. Let me express to you why that takes place. For some people, anyways. When people walk into adulthood with a cup, their heart, or their emotional bank account, as we'll use the word for Chapman, already empty, especially in the area of love. Maybe they didn't receive the affection that they needed, especially during some very important times in their life. They didn't have the time. They didn't spend time with them. And they were brought up with somehow an idea or a belief that they were not valuable. They weren't significant. They weren't loved. They weren't important. They weren't worthy. And so if they are brought up with this, probably misinformed in some way, but that's what they go into adulthood believing, and they have this cup, and now they look at it and they go, wait a second, I was entitled to receive this love. I was entitled to receive all of these good messages about my worth and value. I didn't get it. Now you've got to fill it up. They have to fill it up. And so they go to their kids. They get married and they have children. Now those children are supposed to fill their cup up. They're married, and now their married partner needs to fill that up. And here's what happens is that when they are expecting other people to fill it up for them, it's never enough. And they spend their time often blaming the other person for not doing it right, not doing it when they needed it. They begin to question their motives or why they're doing it. They comment on, yeah, you say you love me, but do you really love me? Yes, thanks for the affection, but I needed that hug to last 30 seconds longer. Okay, yeah, great. Thanks for picking up the laundry, but you didn't cut the grass like you said you were going to. And it's never enough. There's always something that they are blaming the other person for, that because they didn't do it right, that didn't fill their cup up right. Therefore, that must mean you don't love me, or I'm not feeling loved. That's the danger of looking at the five love language through that prism. And I just want to say that I do not believe that Gary Chapman had that desire in his heart. I think that the premise is solid. I think, yes, in order for us to show love to each other, there does need to be this give and take. Great, great ways to show love, all five of those. And they change over time. But to interpret the fact that if you don't receive it exactly the way you want it, at the measure that you want it, at the time that you want it, then that means you're not being loved. That's where it gets really messed up. Feelings are not truth. They're not right or wrong. It's telling you something's going on there. But what you have to do is you have to challenge your feelings with what is really true. As I work with couples, one of the things that I often deal with is they come up with this. Well, my love language is affection. Great. And so when you don't get the affection that you want at any given time, what does that say to you? How do you interpret that? Well, I don't think I'm loved. And then I'll say, well, is that true? Well, no, I know it's not true. I know they love me. Then what's the issue? But I don't feel loved. So you're letting your feelings dictate what is really true. Now, where do we get truth? Now, you've heard probably on some of my other videos this, but we get truth in three ways. One is innately we know it's true. And in most cases, whenever I'm sitting across from an individual or a couple, they know that their feelings are not necessarily accurate. They're not giving them the accurate picture. So innately, they know this. We get truth from significant people in our lives. We do. And when we're younger, and some of those people that were supposed to be pouring in all of these positive messages, they didn't do it, and we didn't have the capacity when we were younger to do it ourselves. And so this is what the problem is that we go through life expecting other people now to fill that cup up. But even if we slow our world down long enough and we go, well, who else in our world, even though I don't feel loved, is there anybody in my world that is really telling me that I am loved, or that has shown me love, or I know without a doubt love me? Almost everybody can come up with somebody in their life that demonstrates that. And then the third way that we find truth is through our spiritual resources. And that's where a relationship with God, a relationship with Christ can really reinforce the fact that, you know what, I know right now I'm not feeling love, but I know I am. I know I am loved. I am important. I am very significant. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son for me. So that challenging, and so here's what I would like to encourage those people out there that have this cup that it is empty for whatever reason. One, to investigate how did it come up so empty? How did it end up this way? And to look and decide that's what occurred, and now what am I doing that's unhealthy to try to fill it up. One of the things that I see people do is they expect other people to read their mind. Again, my wife and I have been married together now since 1976, and so we've learned a lot from each other. One of the things that we had to really address really quickly in our relationship was that sometimes she expected me to read her mind. If you really loved me, you would know no, just because I said I do, I did not somehow then develop this ability to read her mind. And so if she really needed a hug at any one given point in time, instead of her just sitting over there wallowing in the fact that she's not getting that hug that she so desperately needs, she learned to say, Wib, I could really use a hug right now. Well, that was code. That was not even code. That was a really clear message that I needed to drop whatever I was doing and give her a big hug. Now, somebody might say, but that's just not who I am. I just can't give that kind of physical touch. Well, in all seriousness, that's where you better learn to do it. Because if you want a balanced give and take in the relationship, sometimes you just got to do something that doesn't come natural. That's the bottom line. And so one of the things that my wife began to do, she began to clearly say, here's what I need. And that was something she had to learn to do. And then I had to learn to respond to that accordingly. Now, here's something else that's important. If I know that my wife enjoys, I'm going to stay with physical touch again, and I go over and give her a hug, if all of a sudden she says, well, you know what, that was okay, but I needed that to be, a lot longer. Or, why are you hugging me now? What do you want? Or, again, questions my motivation, or whether comments in some capacity that I didn't do it right. Well, what's that going to do to me as I consider reaching out to her and giving her physical touch? If I were to comment every meal that there was something I didn't like about the meal, then what was going to happen eventually at dinner time? Well, if my wife was making a meal, I might just be getting corn dogs all the time, because there was obviously no way that I was going to please her. Or she was going to, there was no way that she was going to please me. There we go. I knew it was there. There was no way she was going to please me. So the point being is that you reinforce what you want repeated. My wife did a very good job of that. Whenever I would, out of the blue, go over and give her a hug, she says, oh, Wib, that means so much to me. Whenever she would give me an encouraging word, which she was very good at, just naturally, my thank you and sincere appreciation would just make me want to do it, whatever I was doing, even more so. Reinforce in a positive way what you want repeated. So, The 5 Love Languages. Great book if it's considered and if it's used appropriately. It is not meant to be a gauge as to whether or not you were loved or not. It was only meant to be a demonstration of ways that we could show love, receive love, and give love. But don't let your feelings dictate what is really true. Thank you for listening to this podcast regarding the abuses of the 5 love languages. If you would like to subscribe to this channel, I really encourage you to do so. Tell your friends about it. Look around Self-Tech YouTube channel and see if there's some other ones that you would like to listen to. I would love to hear from you. See if there's a topic that you'd like for me to address. Just email me at wib@newhoperesources.com. Follow me on Facebook, not only on New Hope Resources, but also Self-Tech. So again, thank you so much, and I look forward to being with you again soon.